The lights in the Galactic Council chamber were always too bright for human eyes. Admiral Park Tay had thought this every time he visited, and he thought it again now as he stood before the 14 species that ruled the known galaxy. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. The medals on his chest meant nothing in this room. To these ancient beings, humanity was still a child species. It's barely worth noticing. 80 years ago, humans had discovered faster-than-light travel. 80 years ago, they had stumbled into a galaxy already organized, already ruled, already tired of newcomers. The Galactic Council had welcomed Earth with open arms and closed minds. Humanity was given the lowest seat, the smallest voice, and the strictest rules. Admiral Park had accepted this. He had served faithfully for 40 years, following every regulation, respecting every treaty. He had buried his own son after a border skirmish that the Council had called unfortunate but minor. He had swallowed his grief and continued serving. That was what good soldiers did. But now, standing in this too-bright chamber, Park felt something breaking inside him. The Council recognizes the human representative, the Morthani High Speaker announced. The Morthani were ancient beings, their gray skin wrinkled with 10,000 years of civilization. They had founded the Council. They made the rules. You may present your request. Park stepped forward. Behind him, Counselor Yuna Oh watched with careful eyes. She was Earth's diplomat here, a woman who believed in patience and protocol. Park respected her even when he disagreed with her methods. High Speaker, Park began, keeping his voice steady. 3 human colonies have gone silent in the past month. New Busan, Undong Station, Gindo 4. Our scouts have confirmed Velan Dominion ships in those sectors. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Velan were known to everyone. A reptilian empire from beyond Council space. They had been raiding border worlds for centuries. The Council had never stopped them. The Council had never tried. We request permission to launch a defensive operation, Park continued. Our people are dying. We must respond. The Morthani High Speaker's ancient eyes showed no emotion. The Velan Dominion is not a Council matter. They exist outside our jurisdiction. They are attacking Council members, Park said, his voice rising slightly. They are attacking us. And you wish to respond with violence. The High Speaker's tone made the words sound dirty. The Council does not approve of military solutions. We have maintained peace for 12,000 years through diplomacy, not war. Park wanted to laugh. Peace. The Council called it peace when they ignored attacks on smaller species. They called it peace when they let predators hunt the weak. This was not peace. This was cowardice dressed in fancy robes. But he held his tongue. Yuna had warned him before the session. Stay calm. Follow the process. Trust the system. We are not asking to start a war, Park said carefully. We are asking to defend ourselves. The Council voted. It took less than 5 minutes. 12 species voted against humanity's request. 2 abstained. None voted in favor. The High Speaker announced the result without any feeling in his voice. Resolution 7714 is now in effect. The human government is forbidden from any military action against the Velan Dominion. The Council will handle negotiations. Any violation will result in immediate expulsion from Council membership and full economic sanctions. Park stood frozen. Behind him, he heard Yuna take a sharp breath. The humans are dismissed, the High Speaker said. This session is closed. The walk back to the human embassy felt like a funeral march. Neither Park nor Yuna spoke. What was there to say? The galaxy had just told humanity to sit down and die quietly. In the embassy, they found Lieutenant Nari Kwan waiting for them. She was young, barely 30, but she spoke 11 alien languages and understood politics better than most admirals. Her face was pale. Sir, she said to Park, we received a transmission from Jindo 4. Park's heart went cold. Show me. They gathered in the secure communications room. Captain Han Dewan was already there, the young tactical officer standing rigid with barely controlled anger. The screen flickered to life. The footage was grainy, captured by a mining drone that had somehow survived the attack. It showed the main settlement of Jindo 4, It showed the Velen soldiers moving through the streets. It showed what they were doing to the colonists. Nara turned away. Doan's hands curled into fists. Una covered her mouth. Park watched it all. He forced himself to see every moment. The Velen were not just killing. They were not just conquering. They were harvesting. They were loading human beings onto transport ships like cattle. Men, women, children, families. Screaming as they were torn apart. The footage ended. Silence filled the room. "The council wants us to negotiate," Una whispered. Her voice was hollow. Park said nothing. He was remembering his son. He was remembering the council's words after his death. Unfortunate, but minor. He was remembering 40 years of service. 40 years of following rules made by species who had forgotten what it meant to fight for anything. Admiral Doan said quietly, "What do we do?" Park looked at the young captain, then at Nari, then at Una. These were good people. They deserved better than a galaxy that considered them expendable. "For now," Park said slowly, "we follow orders. We stand down. We let the council handle negotiations." He paused. "But we also prepare. Quietly. We train our people. We build our ships. We wait." "Wait for what?" Nari asked. Park turned back to the blank screen, seeing ghosts of the footage still playing in his mind. 2 million people lived on Jungju Prime, the largest human colony outside Earth. If the Velen grew bolder, if the council's negotiations failed, that world would be next. "We wait for the council to fail," Park said. "And when they do, we will be ready to do what they cannot." Una stepped forward. "Tay, if we act without permission, they will destroy us. Sanctions. Isolation. We cannot survive alone." Park turned to face her. For a moment, the diplomat saw something in the old admiral's eyes that she had never seen before. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was certainty. "Then we will learn to survive alone," Park said. "Humanity has done it before. We crawled out of caves with nothing but rocks and fire. We built civilizations from mud and dreams. We crossed the stars because we refused to accept limits." He straightened his shoulders. "If the council abandons us, we will not beg. We will not break. We will remind this galaxy what humans are capable of when they have nothing left to lose." The words hung in the air like a promise, or perhaps like a warning. Outside the embassy windows, alien ships passed through the station's traffic lanes, carrying beings who had never known true struggle. They had forgotten that survival was not given. It was taken. It was earned. Humanity had not forgotten, and soon the galaxy would remember. 6 months passed like a slow bleeding wound. The Galactic Council sent diplomats to the Velen Dominion. The Velen sent back their heads. The Council expressed concern and scheduled more meetings. Reports were written. Committees were formed. Words were spoken in careful, measured tones by beings who had never watched their children burn. On Earth, people tried to continue their lives. They went to work. They raised families. They watched the news and hoped that someone, somewhere, was doing something. But deep in their hearts, they knew the truth. The galaxy had abandoned them. Admiral Partey spent those months preparing. Quietly, carefully, he moved ships into position. He trained crews for combat scenarios that officially did not exist. He stockpiled weapons and supplies in hidden stations across human space. When questioned by council observers, he called it routine maintenance. The observers believed him. Why would the humans lie? They were such an obedient species. General Han Seok ran Earth Defense Command from a bunker beneath the Korean peninsula. He was an old man with kind eyes and a sharp mind. He never raised his voice. He never needed to. When High NCO spoke, people listened. "The Valen are testing us," he told Park during one of their encrypted calls. "Each raid goes deeper into our space. They know we cannot respond. They're learning how far they can push before we break." "And when we break?" Park asked. High NCO smiled sadly. "Then we show them what breaking really means." The 4th colony fell on a Tuesday morning. Jungju Prime was humanity's jewel in the Outer Rim. 2.3 million people lived there. Families, schools, hospitals, dreams. The Velen fleet arrived at dawn and did not stop until sunset. This time they did not hide their work. They broadcast everything. Every ship in Council space received the transmission. It showed Velen soldiers marching through burning cities. It showed humans being dragged from their homes. It showed the harvesting ships filling their holds with screaming cargo. The message was clear. Humanity was prey. The galaxy was watching, and no one was coming to help. On Earth, something snapped. Dr. Minji Song had survived New Busan. She was a xenobiologist, scientist who had spent her life studying alien life forms. She had believed in the beauty of the universe and the wonder of discovery. That belief had died in the flames of her colony. Now, she stood before Earth's united parliament, her hands trembling, her voice steady. "They do not eat us for food," she told the assembled leaders. "Their biology does not require human flesh. They could synthesize any nutrition they need." She paused, swallowing hard. "They consume sentient beings as a ritual, a display of dominance. In their culture, eating a thinking creature proves your superiority over it." Silence filled the parliament chamber. "I watched them select victims," Minji continued. "They chose the smartest first. The leaders, the teachers, the parents who tried to protect their children. They wanted to consume our best. They wanted to prove that even our greatest were nothing but meat to them." A woman in the front row began to cry. A man near the back stood up and walked out, unable to hear more. Minji kept speaking. She described everything. The processing centers, the holding pens, the sounds that would haunt her until she died. She spoke for 3 hours. When she finished, no one in the chamber could meet her eyes. That night, a journalist named Bora Zhang did something illegal. She had obtained footage from Zhangju Prime, images too graphic for official broadcasts. She uploaded everything to public networks, bypassing every censor and filter. By morning, every human being with a screen had seen the truth. Riots erupted in 12 major cities. People demanded action. They demanded blood. They demanded that someone, anyone, make the Velen pay. The Galactic Council responded with a formal warning. Any human military action would be considered a violation of Resolution 7714. Expulsion would follow. Sanctions would cripple Earth's economy. Humanity would be alone and starving within a decade. Counselor Yuna Oh received the warning in her office on the council station. She read it 3 times. Then she walked to her window and looked out at the stars. She had spent her entire career believing in diplomacy. She had argued for patience, for trust, for working within the system. She had told Admiral Park to wait. She had told her people to have faith. 2 million people on Zhangju Prime had put their faith in the system. Now they were dead or worse. The next morning, Yuna requested an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Every species sent their representatives. The chamber was full when she entered. She walked to the speaking platform slowly. She was wearing her formal diplomatic robes, the ones reserved for the most important occasions. The sash across her chest marked her as Earth's voice in this chamber. The Morthani High Speaker nodded at her. "The Council recognizes Counselor Yuna O of Earth. You may speak." Yuna stood still for a long moment. She looked at each representative in turn. The ancient Morthani, the crystalline Veth, the insectoid Crix. 14 species who had watched humanity suffer and done nothing. 6 months ago she began, "I came to this chamber and asked for help. We had lost 3 colonies, hundreds of thousands of our people. You told us to wait. You told us to trust your negotiations." Her voice was calm, steady, empty. "We waited. We trusted. We buried our dead and believed you when you said peace was possible." She reached up and touched her diplomatic sash. 4 days ago, we lost Zhangju Prime, 2.3 million human beings. Men, women, and children. Families who believed, as I did, that the Galactic Council would protect them. The High Speaker shifted uncomfortably. "Counselor, the negotiations are ongoing. These things take time. Time." Yuna's voice cracked slightly. "My species has a saying, justice delayed is justice denied. Your negotiations have taken 6 months. The Velen have taken 6 million lives. She pulled the sash over her head and held it in her hands. The fabric was old, precious, a symbol of everything she had worked for. You asked us to trust your protection, she said. We did. 2 million of our children are dead. We will not bury a 3rd million waiting for your mercy. She placed the sash on the speaking platform. The gesture was unmistakable. She was surrendering her position. Earth was leaving the council. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions, demands, threats. The High Speaker called for order. Yuna ignored all of it. She turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, she stopped and looked back one final time. You call us a young species, she said. You are right. We are young. Young enough to remember what it means to fight for the people we love. Young enough to believe that some things matter more than treaties and trade agreements. Her eyes were hard now, harder than any diplomat's eyes should be. You have made your choice. Now we will make ours. She walked out. Behind her, the Galactic Council fell into chaos. Warnings were issued. Threats were made. Emergency meetings were scheduled. But none of it mattered anymore. In orbit above Earth, 600 warships began powering their engines. In bunkers beneath mountains, soldiers checked their weapons. In homes across human space, families looked at each other and understood that everything was about to change. The Council had wanted peace. Humanity had a different word for what came. Next, they called it reprisal. The United Parliament of Earth had not declared war in over 300 years. The chamber was built for debate, for compromise, for the slow work of democracy. Now it felt like a different place. Every seat was filled. Every face was grim. The Great Seal of Earth hung above the central platform, watching over representatives from every nation, every colony, every corner of human civilization. General HFY Oak stood at the podium. Behind him, a massive screen showed maps, numbers, projections. The tools of war displayed in cold, clean graphics. The Velen Dominion controls 40 worlds, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. Their fleet numbers, approximately 800 combat vessels. Their ground forces exceed 50 million soldiers. A murmur rippled through the parliament. The numbers were terrifying. HFY continued without pause. Our combined human fleet consists of 600 warships. Many are old. Some were pulled from museums. Our active ground forces number 12 million, with another 20 million in reserve. He paused to let the comparison sink in. On paper, we cannot win this war. Silence. Complete and total silence. But war is not fought on paper. HFY's eyes swept across the chamber. War is fought by people. And the Velen have made a mistake that no amount of ships or soldiers can fix. They have given humanity something we have not had in centuries. He pressed a button. The screen changed to show images from the colonies. The burning cities. The harvesting ships. The faces of the dead. They have given us a reason to fight. The Parliament voted 2 hours later. The result was unanimous. For the first time since the formation of the United Earth Government, every nation, every faction, every political party agreed on one thing. Humanity was going to war. Admiral Park Tae received the news aboard his flagship, S. Indomitable. He had been waiting for this moment for 6 months. Part of him had hoped it would never come. A larger part had known it was inevitable. He called his senior officers to the command deck. Captain Han Do-on arrived first, his young face tight with controlled energy. Lieutenant Nari Kwan came next, her datapad already filled with intelligence reports. Others followed. The best humanity had to offer, gathered in one room. The declaration is official, Park told them. Operation Reprisal begins in 48 hours. Do-on stepped forward. Sir, the stealth cruiser Ghost of Busan is ready for deployment. My crew has been training for this. Park studied the young man. Do-on was brilliant, perhaps the finest tactical mind of his generation. He was also untested in real combat. War would change him. War changed everyone. You will command the Ghost, Park said. Lieutenant Quan will serve as your executive officer. Nari's eyes widened slightly. It was a significant promotion. Sir, I am honored, but my skills are in communications and languages. I am not a combat officer. That is exactly why I need you there, Park replied. This war will not be won only with weapons. We will need to speak to occupied populations, intercept enemy communications, and broadcast our message to the galaxy. Your voice will be as important as any gun. Nari straightened her spine and nodded. I understand, sir. I will not fail you. Park looked at all of them. These were not soldiers from storybooks. They were ordinary people who had chosen to stand up when the universe pushed them down. That was the human way. It had always been the human way. The Council believes we are making a mistake, Park said. They believe we will be crushed. They may be right. We are outnumbered. We are outgunned. We are fighting an empire that has conquered for 10,000 years. He walked to the observation window. Outside, hundreds of ships were forming up, their lights blinking against the darkness of space. The combined human fleet. Humanity's answer to a galaxy that had written them off. But the Council has forgotten something important, Park continued. They have forgotten what makes us dangerous. It is not our ships or our weapons. It is not our technology or our numbers. It is this. He turned back to face his officers and touched his chest over his heart. We fight for our families. We fight for our dead. We fight because we remember the names of everyone we have lost, and we will not let those names mean nothing. His voice hardened. The Velen fight for dominance, for ritual, for pride. We fight for love. That is a fire they cannot match. The Morthani High Speaker sent a final message to Admiral Park before the fleet departed. The ancient alien's holographic image filled the communications screen, his gray face unreadable. Admiral Park, the High Speaker said, you are leading your species to destruction. The Velen have never been defeated. Their empire has stood for millennia. What makes you believe humans will succeed where so many others have failed? Park considered the question for a long moment. Then he smiled slightly. High Speaker, when my ancestors lived in caves, they faced predators bigger and stronger than themselves. They were not the fastest creatures or the deadliest, but they survived. They survived because they learned to work together. They learned to make tools. They learned to adapt. He leaned forward. The Velen have won their wars because their enemies fought the way the Velen expected. They engaged in honorable battles. They followed predictable patterns. They played by the rules. Park's smile faded. We will not. We will fight dirty. We will fight smart. We will hit them where they do not expect and disappear before they can respond. We will make them afraid of shadows. High Speaker's expression shifted slightly. Perhaps concern? Perhaps something else. You will be alone, the alien warned. No Council species will aid you. No reinforcements will come. You will face the Velen with only your own strength. Park nodded. We were alone when we crawled out of caves. We were alone when we built our first cities. We were alone when we reached for the stars. We have always been alone, High Speaker. We have just been too polite to say it out loud. The transmission ended. 20-4 hours later, Admiral Park stood on the command platform of the Indomitable. Around him, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. Ahead, through the great windows, the fleet had assembled. 600 ships. The hope of humanity, Park activated the fleet-wide communication channel. His voice would reach every vessel, every soldier, every person who had chosen to fight. Humanity, he began. The Galactic Council calls us young. They say we do not understand the universe. They say we should accept our place and be grateful for their protection. He paused, letting the words sink in. They are wrong. We understand the universe perfectly. We understand that it is cold and dark and does not care whether we live or die. We understand that no one will save us except ourselves. We understand that the strong take and the weak perish. His voice rose. But we also understand something the Council has forgotten. Something the Velen have never learned. We understand that strength is not measured in ships or weapons. It is measured in will. It is measured in the refusal to surrender, even when all hope seems lost. Park looked out at his fleet one final time. The council told us to make peace. They were right. We will make peace. We will make the peace of warriors written in fire and sealed in blood. We will make a peace that the Velen will remember for 10,000 years. He raised his hand. All ships, engage jump drives. Take us to war. 600 engines flared. Reality twisted. And humanity went to remind the galaxy what it meant to fight. The council watched from their chamber. Silent and afraid, they had called humans a young species. They were about to learn what young species could. Warchef Grolic had conquered 12 species in his lifetime. He had led the Velen armies for 40 years, never knowing defeat. His scales bore the ritual scars of 100 victories, and his throne was built from the bones of fallen enemies. When the humans declared war, he laughed. His advisors showed him the numbers. 600 human ships against 800 Velen warships. 12 million human soldiers against 50 million Velen warriors. The mathematics were simple. The outcome was certain. They are brave, Grolic admitted, settling back on his bone throne. Foolish, but brave. This will make their flesh taste sweeter when we harvest them. He ordered his fleets to crush the human advance. He expected victory within weeks. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came at the Evon supply station of Korvac 7. 3 massive cargo ships vanished without a trace. No distress signals. No wreckage. Just empty space where thousands of tons of supplies had been. Grolic dismissed it as an accident. Equipment failure. Nothing more then? Korvac 12 went dark. Then the communication relay at Theta Point. Then the fuel depot at Velen's Edge. Commander. Hondoan smiled as he reviewed the reports aboard the ESS. Ghost of Busan, the stealth cruiser had been designed for exactly this kind of work. Silent, fast, and deadly. His crew had become ghosts, striking from shadows and disappearing before the Velen could respond. They are panicking, Lieutenant Nari Kwan reported from her station. I'm intercepting confused communications across their command network. They do not know what is happening. Doan nodded. Good. Fear is a weapon. Let them imagine enemies everywhere. Let them jump at shadows. When they cannot trust their supply lines, they cannot fight. The ghost was not alone. 30 stealth vessels operated across Velen space, each one a needle drawing blood from the giant. They targeted supplies, communications, and morale. They left behind messages in the Velen language. Written by Nara's team. We remember New Busan. We remember Andong. Station. We remember Jindo 4. We. Remember Junju Prime? We are. Coming. While Doan's ghosts bled the Velen from the shadows. A different kind of war was being fought on the ground. Sergeant, Jin Era, had survived Jindo 4. She was the only member of her family to escape the harvest. Her parents were gone. Her brothers were gone. Her daughter, only 7 years old, had been taken while Ara watched from a burning building. Unable to move, unable to scream, the grief had nearly destroyed her. Instead, she let it forge her into something new. The Jindo ghosts were special forces unlike any Earth had produced before. Every member was a survivor from the fallen colonies. Every member had lost everything. They trained in secret, learning to fight like shadows. To kill without mercy, to survive against impossible odds. Now, they were deployed to occupied worlds. Slipping through Velen's security like water through cracks, Era crouched in the darkness of an abandoned factory on Velen-controlled Myro 6. Around her, 6 of her soldiers waited in perfect silence. Outside, Velen patrols marched through streets that had once belonged to another species, now enslaved and broken. Intact in 3 minutes, whispered Johan Lee, her second-in-command. The regional commander's transport. Ara nodded. They had been tracking this commander for weeks. He was responsible for the harvest quotas on Myra 6. Under his orders, thousands of sentient beings were processed every month. Tonight, his work would end. The ambush was perfect. Silent weapons. Precise movements. In 30 seconds, the commander and his guards were dead, and the Jindo ghosts had vanished. But they left something behind. Messages, weapons, instructions, hope by morning. The enslaved population of Myra 6 knew that someone was fighting back. Within a week, resistance cells had formed across the planet. Within a month, Velen forces were struggling to maintain control. The same pattern repeated on a dozen worlds. Wherever the Jindo ghosts went, rebellion followed. They taught the conquered how to resist. They showed them that the Velen were not gods. They proved that even the mightiest empire could bleed. Warchef Gralik was no longer laughing. His supply lines were in chaos. His occupied territories were burning. His soldiers were becoming afraid to walk alone. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They did not seek honorable battles. They did not follow rules. They were everywhere and nowhere, a shadow war that his generals could not understand. "Nuff," Gralik growled. "We will end this with overwhelming force. Gather the main fleet. We will crush their navy and burn their homeworld. When Earth is ash, their resistance will die." The Velen armada assembled at the Corinth Nebula, a massive cloud of gas and radiation that marked the border between Velen and human space. 300 warships. The largest Velen fleet in 500 years, Admiral Parkte, met them with 100 vessels. The Velen commanders could not believe the human foolishness. They outnumbered their enemy 3-1. The battle would be a slaughter. Park had counted on their arrogance. The Corinth Nebula was filled with radiation that disrupted sensors and communications. The Velen saw this as a minor inconvenience. Park saw it as an opportunity. "All ships, disperse to assigned positions," Park ordered calmly. "Complete radio silence. Wait for my signal." The human fleet scattered into the nebula, disappearing into the swirling clouds. The Velen followed, confident in their numbers. They did not see the trap closing around them. Park had studied the nebula for months. His crews knew every pocket of dense radiation, every gap in the clouds, every current and eddy. They had practiced this battle 100 times in simulations. When the signal came, 100 human ships attacked from every direction simultaneously. They struck at engines and weapons. They rammed damaged vessels into their neighbors. They fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. The Velen formation collapsed into chaos. Their numbers meant nothing in the swirling clouds where ships could barely see each other. Their communications failed in the radiation. Their commanders could not coordinate. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 200 Velen warships were destroyed or crippled. Humanity lost 43 vessels. Admiral Park had won the greatest naval victory in human history against an enemy that had never known defeat. The galaxy received the news in shocked silence. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. The Morthani High Speaker watched battle recordings with ancient eyes that had seen many wars. But nothing like this. On Velen Prime, War Chief Gralik received a transmission. Not from Admiral Park, not from any military commander. It came from Earth itself. Millions of voices speaking in unison. Every name of every human being who had died in the colonies. Every man, every woman, every child. Their names transmitted on an endless loop, and beneath the names, 7 words that would haunt Velen dreams for generations. "We remember. We are coming for you." Gralik stared at the transmission. For the first time in his long life, he understood what fear truly meant. These humans were not like other species. They did not fight for territory or resources or pride. They fought for something he could not understand. They fought for love, for memory, for the simple, terrible belief that no death should go unanswered. He had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, and now it was coming for his homeworld, the combined human fleet emerged from hyperspace above Vorthax. The Velen homeworld Admiral Parkte stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, watching the alien planet turn slowly below. It was a harsh world, all red deserts and black mountains, home to a species that had conquered and consumed for 10,000 years. 500 human warships surrounded the planet. On paper, the Velen still had superior numbers. But the Velen fleet was scattered, chasing shadows across their crumbling empire. Their supply lines were broken. Their colonies were in revolt. Their soldiers were afraid. The war was already won. Only one question remained. Park activated the global broadcast channel. Every Velen on the planet would hear his voice. "People of Vorthax," he began. "6 months ago, your empire killed millions of my people. You did not conquer them. You did not enslave them. You consumed them. You fed on thinking, feeling beings, and called it tradition." He paused, letting his words sink into every Velen ear. "I could end your species today. My fleet carries enough firepower to turn your world into glass. Every city, every home, every living thing on this planet could burn in the next hour. That is what you would do in my position. That is what you have done to countless others." Park looked out at the alien world, at the millions of lives that hung in the balance of his next words. "We are not you." The Indomitable's tactical officer looked up from his console, confusion on his face. Around the bridge, officers exchanged uncertain glances. They had fought across Velen space. They had lost friends, colleagues, family. Many of them wanted blood. They had earned the right to demand it, Park understood. He felt the same fire in his chest, the same hunger for revenge. His son had died because of Velen aggression. Millions of his people had been harvested like animals. Justice demanded punishment, but justice and revenge were not the same thing. "We did not come here to destroy," Park continued his broadcast. "We came here to end a threat and build something better. Your government will surrender unconditionally. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes. Your military will disarm. But your people will live." He straightened his shoulders. "This is the human way. We break what threatens us. Then we build. We do not become the monsters we fight. If we did, we would have lost this war before it started." The invasion of Vorthax was brutal. The Velen did not surrender easily. Millions of soldiers defended their homeworld with desperate ferocity. They knew what their species had done to others. They expected the same fate. Sergeant Jin Ara led the Jindo Ghosts into the capital city. Building by building, street by street, they fought toward the central fortress where Warchef Gralik had made his final stand. Human soldiers died by the thousands. The cost of victory was paid in blood, but they did not massacre civilians. They did not burn cities that surrendered. They fought soldiers who carried weapons and spared those who put their weapons down. Many Velen could not understand this mercy. It was foreign to everything they knew. Ara herself captured Gralik. The Warchef had retreated to his throne room, surrounded by his personal guard. When Ara's team breached the doors, most of the guards chose to fight. They died quickly. But Gralik himself stood motionless beside his throne of bones, watching the human soldiers with ancient eyes. "You have won," he said. His voice was calm, almost curious. "Why do you hesitate? Kill me. Eat my flesh. That is the right of the conqueror." Ara looked at the being who had ordered the deaths of millions. Her daughter's face flashed through her memory. 7 years old. Taken while Ara watched. Gone forever. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then she lowered her weapon. "No," she said. "You do not get to die a warrior. You do not get to be remembered as a hero who fell in battle. You will stand trial. You will face the families of everyone you killed. You will answer for your crimes in front of the entire galaxy." Gralik's eyes widened. This was worse than death. This was humiliation. This was complete defeat. "And then what?" he asked. Ara smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you will live. You will live knowing that the species you called prey destroyed your empire, captured your homeworld, and chose not to destroy you. You will live knowing that we were stronger than you in every way that matters." She nodded to her soldiers. "Take him." The trial lasted 3 months. Every spacefaring species in the galaxy watched the broadcasts. Dr. Minji Song testified about the harvesting rituals she had witnessed. Survivors from every fallen colony spoke their truth. Evidence was presented, documented, verified. The scale of Velen atrocities was laid bare for all to see. Grolic and his commanders were found guilty of crimes against sentience. They were sentenced to life imprisonment on a barren moon, where they would spend their remaining years in isolation. Not execution. Not revenge. Justice, the galaxy had never seen anything like it. Counselor Una returned to the Galactic Council chamber for the first time since her dramatic exit. The Morthani High Speaker requested a private meeting after the official session. They sat in a small room, overlooking the station's central garden. The ancient Morthani moved slowly, the weight of millennia visible in every gesture. "I do not understand," the High Speaker said finally. "You had complete victory. The Velen were helpless. You could have ended their species, taken their worlds, made yourself the dominant power in the galaxy. Why did you show mercy?" Una considered the question carefully. Through the window, she could see ships passing by, carrying beings from 100 worlds who were still trying to understand what had happened. "Because we are not them," she said. "We did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to protect our people and ensure that no one else would suffer what our colonies suffered." She turned to face the High Speaker directly. "You asked why we spared the Velen. The answer is simple. Monsters destroy. That is all they know. We are not monsters. We are human. We break things that hurt us, and then we build something better." The High Speaker was silent for a long moment. "Your species has been part of the Council for 80 years, he said slowly. "In that time, we have thought of you as children, primitive, emotional, dangerous perhaps, but ultimately controllable." He shook his head. "We were wrong. You are something the Council has never seen before. A species young enough to still feel, and old enough to control what they feel. You could have been tyrants. You chose to be something else," Una nodded. "That is what your Council forgot how to do. You've had peace for so long that you forgot why peace matters. You preserved order while innocent species burned. We reminded the galaxy that peace must be earned, must be fought for, must be protected." 1 year later, the Galactic Council ratified Resolution 7-715. It was called the Park Doctrine. It's named after the human admiral who had led the war. Any species under existential threat could defend itself, regardless of prior resolutions. No more would the Council tell victims to accept their fate. No more would peace be an excuse for cowardice. Admiral Park Tay retired to New Busan, rebuilt from the ashes of the original colony. He spent his final years tending a garden and watching his grandchildren play. Sometimes visitors came, politicians and historians wanting to ask about the war. He always refused interviews. "The war is over," he would say. "Let it stay in the past. We have better things to build." Commander Hondoan was promoted to admiral. He took command of the ESS Redemption, flagship of humanity's new peacekeeping fleet. Lieutenant Nari Kwan served as his second-in-command, her voice now known across the galaxy as the one who had spoken for humanity during its darkest hours. Sergeant Jin Ara left military service. She established a foundation for war orphans, children from every species who had lost their families to conflict. She never found peace with her daughter's death, but she found purpose in helping others survive their own losses. Dr. Minji Song wrote a book about the war, complete record of what had happened and why. It became required reading in schools across human space. The dead would not be forgotten, and deep in the archives of the Galactic Council, a Morthani historian updated the species classification files. Under humans, the previous entry had read juvenile, non-threatening, cooperative. The new entry read dangerous when provoked, merciful when victorious, do not test. It was a warning and a promise. Humanity had come to the stars as children, uncertain and easily dismissed. They had been tested by fire and emerged as something new. Not conquerors, not destroyers. Something harder to define, protectors. Perhaps builders, dreamers. Who could also fight? They had taught the galaxy a lesson written. In fire and sealed in mercy, some things are worth fighting for, and some enemies are better defeated than destroyed. The stars shone cold and bright above New Busan. The same stars that had watched humanity crawl from caves, cross oceans, and reach beyond their own world. They had witnessed the war and its aftermath. They would witness whatever came next. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other species looked toward Earth and remembered. What they had seen, the young species had grown up. The galaxy would never forget.